Hey, I'm happy to be here. Let me just introduce myself very briefly. My name is Carlton Jones. I'm a commercial broker with H&H Brokerage in Ferguson, Missouri. And I really do appreciate the leadership of our local NAREB chapter giving us the opportunity to share information about opportunity zones with our members. Like, I'm a member of the OZworks group platform, and I'm also a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And this DEI committee, this group is making an effort to reach all communities and share information about opportunity zones and how they can be utilized for community development. And I always share with them that I'm a member of NAREB, an organization of Black professional real estate, Black professional real estate folks, and it's been around since 1947. And I just think opportunity zones are a great way to develop our community. So having the chance to sit down and chat with you about what Oz Group platform does and what opportunity zones are all about is just wonderful. And I hope you have and receive a lot of good information that you can utilize. The presentation, I'm not going to say it's lengthy, but it is definitely on board and on point. But it will be available for you to look at and maybe dive more into it down the road. So let's get started. So Patrick, you got the disclaimer up there?
Yeah, we're not giving anybody any advice, Carlton. We're just conveying some information.
This is like one of those medicine commercials on TV. So opportunity zone, what are opportunity zones? How did they come into existence? Opportunity zones are designated census tracts in economically distressed communities where new investments in real estate, businesses, entrepreneurial, job development activities may be eligible for preferential tax treatment. And what I'm going to point out is that you can make investments in opportunity zone in real estate, new businesses, ongoing businesses, entrepreneurial activities, and job development activities. It's not exclusively real estate, but it is exclusively community development. And that's why it's available in all of those particular arenas. Because one of the goals and objectives of opportunity zones is not only community development, but it's for social impact as well. Opportunity zones were added to the tax code by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of December 2017. Now, the purpose of opportunity zones and how an area becomes an OZ, opportunity zones are an economic development tool designed to spur economic activity and community development by providing tax benefits to investors. And the tax benefits to investors are a way for them to shield or even eliminate their capital gain taxes. And these capital gain taxes can come from anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to just come from real estate. It can come from business equity. It can come from stock sales. It can come from anywhere where you have a capital gain. You can invest in a qualified opportunity zone fund and receive tax benefits. And Patrick will talk a lot about that more as he goes along with what we're doing. In order to be chosen as an OZ, an area must be nominated and designated by state government officials and certified by the Internal Revenue Service. There are now designated O-zones in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 5 US territories. And as the federal program currently stands, no new opportunity zones can be created. And I think this is important because we have all seen where different types of tax advantage and tax incentive investments have went to areas that really were not qualified. Here in St. Louis, it can be West County, it can be Chesterfield, but the opportunity zone and the TIFs and things of that nature were qualified or put together for economically distressed communities. So by government finagling and political purposes, a lot of TIFs and things of that nature have been moved around. However, with opportunity zones, you cannot move them around. They have to stay where they are. Here in St. Louis, there are 27 designated opportunity zones, census tracts in St. Louis. They have been put together in 10 different, what they call clusters. And these are the opportunity zones in St. Louis. Old North St. Louis and the riverfront. The NGA Project Connect. The Delmar Martin Luther King Corridor. Greater Downtown. The South Riverport. Dutchtown and Bevo. Cortex and the Grove. The Grand Center. The I-70 Industrial and Natural Bridge area. In St. Louis County, there are 14 designated opportunity zones. They're primarily in the inner ring suburbs, North and South County, and they generally follow the boundaries of the current promise zones. Now, to talk about opportunity zones, the main reason I like them is because it provides access to capital. Access to capital. Since the creation of the opportunity zone, which was just a couple years ago, there's 925 qualified opportunity zones with about over $15 billion in investment. And reason I point out and I emphasize the access to capital is because we all know money moves mountains, make oases out of deserts. I mean, Los Angeles is a desert. That's money. Las Vegas was the desert. The Lake of the Ozarks with 1,100 lines of shoreline was created. So what we're saying is that if you have a deal or a project that is seeking capital, one of the best things to do is to connect, if you can, in any way, shape, or fashion, with an opportunity zone fund. And there's different types of opportunity zone funds, of course, for real estate, business, job creation, and entrepreneurial investments. And Patrick will talk a little bit more about that as well. But the bottom line is access to capital. You have a situation where projects be looking for capital, but with opportunity zones, you have capital looking for projects. Capital looking for projects. I'm part of an opportunity zone fund, it's called the Midwest Opportunity Zone Fund, LLC. And what we're doing and what the group is doing, we have 6 Midwestern cities that we're dealing with, and we're taking out ads and making calls for people who have projects that need funding to present to us, to pitch with us, and which is one of the things that the OZworks platform does as well. Once or twice a month, we have pitch days where you can actually come in and pitch your project in front of a group of investors or in front of different opportunity zones. So what we're talking about here is this access to capital. I think, and I believe, it is a wonderful opportunity for what I call a Marshall Plan for the cities. A Marshall Plan for the cities. And those of you who may not be old enough to know what the Marshall Plan is or was, it was the plan whereby the United States rebuilt Europe after World War II. Massive amount of capital went into Berlin and through Poland and Czechoslovakia and Central Europe. And look where those nations are today. Why? Because money moves mountains. You can create oases out of deserts. And it's, I believe, and the reason I'm working with and continue to be a part of the OZworks platform is because I know that with the right type of investments, we can and we will create new communities for ourselves and for generations to come. So that's why I said earlier, I like being part of the OZworks platform. My membership, it gives me resources and information. We get podcasts and seminars, and I network and connect with the Opportunity Zone ecosystem. And I just look forward to being able to do some of the things that I do in commercial real estate, because I know if you got the money, it can be done. So I appreciate you listening to me. We're going to turn it over to Patrick, and he's going to give you even more valuable information about Opportunity Zone and how they can change lives.
Thanks, Carlton. And it is really a pleasure to be with your group. And it's nice to meet everybody virtually, at least. It's also nice that you'd have me. I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I'm coming from. I'm a Michigander. I'm also a Tigers, Lions, Red Wings, Pistons fan. So the fact that you'd have me, I really appreciate. But I am a practicing lawyer. My undergrad background is business finance, and I've been practicing for about 38 years. And most of my practice has been business transactional, finance transactional, securities, tax advantage investments, and deal structures, and the like. And so when I became aware of this thing called Opportunity Zones, as they were discussing the 2017 Tax Act, I became very, very curious. And then as I studied it, enthralled. It is in my long experience in this space, it is the most amazing tax benefit for a purpose that I have ever seen. And, you know, it wasn't designed to just be a tax benefit. This screen shows you that there was a challenge. There was a group of organizations and individuals that were studying this, and they were trying to come up with a solution for a challenge. The challenge was economically distressed communities in the United States are dispersed throughout the entire United States. In this map, you see, as you get closer to dark burnt orange are the economically distressed areas, and the darker blue are the more prosperous areas. Chris, next slide. Thank you. And the challenge here is, as we said, 52 million Americans, as this group was studying around 2014 through 2015 or whatever, 1 in 6 Americans are living in economically distressed communities. More importantly, minorities represent over half the population in these distressed communities. African American and Native Americans are more than 3 times as likely in distressed areas to live in distressed areas rather than in more prosperous areas. Similarly, the data showed that in rural areas of under 100,000 people, they were more like 11 times more likely to be economically distressed than in other census tracts. And one thing that has always been the case in my tenure in business development and helping businesses is reliability and timely access to capital resources in general, but particularly in these distressed areas, has continued to hold back business formation and growth. Next slide, please, Chris. And what was said at the time that they were putting this, this had become an act, it had not been enacted yet, but Andrew Young, former US ambassador to the United Nations, former congressman, now chair of the Andrew Young Foundation, really said it best. He said it at the time that this was being enacted. And if you think about it, as you get to know this space, this quote is as true today as it was when they were looking to enact the legislation. So I'd just like to go through it. This is what Andrew Young said about this act that was not yet a law. The Investing in Opportunity Act will harness much needed private capital to flow to more American communities and empower more state and local leaders to build a more prosperous future. Americans of all stripes should unite behind this critical priority and its congressional leaders. Senator Scott, Tim Scott of South Carolina, Cory Booker, co-sponsor, Congressman Tiberi, and Kind of Wisconsin in the House. Their collective sponsorship demonstrate there is hope for this type of bipartisan action that can provide a better future for millions of Americans. And if there was ever a time then, and even more a time now, for bipartisan action out of Washington for good, you know, the time is now, in the program is this. Next slide. Chris.
Patrick, you're looking for the solution slide here?
I'm looking for the first solution slide. Yeah, the solution slide. So the solution is the Opportunity Zone program. Carlton had a good summary of it. The program is designed to use the markets to drive capital into these economically distressed census tracts, and to use the free market to do that through tax incentives. The last bullet is, I think, the salient one here. And this is from the data of the Economic Innovation Group, a group that was in the very foundation of collecting the data and analyzing the problem here that led to the Opportunity Zone legislation. This program is the first new major national community investment program adopted in decades. It has the potential to be the largest economic development program in the United States, possibly ever. And the estimates are as much as $6 trillion of new investments will be driven by the Opportunity Zone legislation. That's the solution that they're attempting to get through this program. Next slide, Chris. So, and again, Carlton had alluded to this, but the program is, it's an investor incentive. It's not a handout or a tax break per se. The incentives are originated by the realization of capital gains from many sources, as Carlton said. The objective is to drive those capital gains into investments in economically distressed census tracts for long-term holdings in developing properties or businesses to create jobs and housing and economic vitality in those census tracts. It's a market-driven approach in that there's no limit on the amount of incentives that can be obtained. It's up to the investment community to take their capital gains and invest them in this program to create the desired results of community impact, social impact, and the reward is the tax benefits. All of the time, it has been determined, and it has been the object of the creators of this program that this is not a be-all, end-all to revitalize these census tracts. But the intent was that the Opportunity Zone program to drive this private capital would also be layered with existing and new federal, state, local, private economic development, community, jobs programs, et cetera, all to form a nucleus of a tool chest to help revitalize these areas. So Opportunity Zones were just added to that, but really were the private capital driver that was missing in the tool belt prior to this. Chris, next slide. So their specifications of the Opportunity Zones are here on the screen. Not really going to go through it, but it is interesting to note that there's a whole bunch of them. Every state has them, and almost the entire island, 98% of the island of Puerto Rico is an Opportunity Zone. So for those of you vacationing in Puerto Rico, also do some business there. A, you can write it off, and B, it's the biggest Opportunity Zone that exists. So when we talk to groups about Opportunity Zones, you know, a lot of times the question is, well, how does this involve me, or why, you know, who cares? I mean, who benefits? I get that the taxpayer benefits, but who else benefits? Who are the stakeholders? And this slide just shows you sort of a summary of who the stakeholders are. On the top of the list, the community is the stakeholder in these distressed census tracts. They're a stakeholder, and they're the beneficiary by virtue of social and economic impact, and ultimately jobs. But you can see in this list all of the other stakeholders that are really more in the what I would call the transaction flow, the transaction closing, doing their normal business, but being aware of this program. This program has the ability to increase business and also make deals that are good even a little better, take sellers and buyers that may be interested, make them motivated because of the tax incentives in this program. So I'm not going to go through this list, but it's one to refer to. It involves all of us if we're aware of it. So and this slide is interesting because it's a little bit dated. It was taken at the end of 2019, and it shows the 12-month moving average of sale prices of real estate in opportunity zone census tracts versus census tracts that could qualify but were not selected as opportunity zone census tracts versus not census tracts that didn't qualify as opportunity zones. So the green is the opportunity zone, the yellow is the distressed areas that were not selected as opportunity zone, and the red is the census tracts that simply didn't qualify because they were too prosperous. And what we found as of the end of 2019, and this trend has continued, is that the average trailing 12 months or change in 12-month moving average sale prices significantly higher in opportunity zones. Very significant. So this slide, again, I'm not going to go through, but when you get into the opportunity zone space, you're going to be acronym crazy. And so these are some of the acronyms that you'll start throwing around, and then you're really in the club when you start using these acronyms. But here's a list of them that we can just refer to. You can. So anyway, just the dynamics of the program. Taxpayers at the beginning generated capital gain. Again, as Carlton mentioned, from any source. They take that capital gain and they make an investment in this animal, in this case a pig, called a qualified opportunity fund. And that opportunity fund then invests in qualified opportunity zone property. Now this is tax legislation, so this is simple. I can deal with this. Well, as usual, the IRS layered it with about 1 page of tax law and then about 900 pages of regulations. So we're not going to go through all the 900 pages, but this basic structure has a lot of rules and regulations that I have found that dealing with OZworks group and the individuals involved there, really, it's kind of a great community to understand some of these rules and deal with people that deal with them in more detail than we do. So that's been a great benefit. So here, essentially, again, now the tax legislation is dealing with the tax benefits, which hopefully then will derive the community and social impact benefits. But it's a trifecta of tax benefits for the investor. The first one, the invested capital gain, is deferred. So from the time that it is realized, from the date it is realized, it is deferred until the end of 2026. So that capital gain that was invested in the Opportunity Zone program will have to be paid, but it won't have to be paid until your tax bill is due in 2027. That is a deferral benefit. The second part of the trifecta is that with respect to that gain that has to be recognized at the end of 2026, you're going to get a 10% discount if you hold that qualifying investment for a total of 5 years. You'll get a 10% step up in basis, therefore you 10% savings on that capital gain you got to pay in 2026. Yeah, that's a nice benefit. In order to take advantage of that, though, the way the legislation is written now, you have to invest in a qualified opportunity zone investment by the end of this year to get that 10% step up in basis. So we're going to see a flurry of activity that we've already seen before, but this is going to really accelerate it at the end of this year. The third, and I think most significant tax benefit in the trifecta is that for a tax, for an investment in a qualified opportunity zone investment that is held for a total of 10 years in a qualified manner, then any gain beyond the amount originally invested, so that I call that appreciation on the gain, if it's held for 10 years, the total investment, when it is realized on a liquidation of that interest after 10 years, the after acquired appreciation will be tax-free. So let's look at how we structure these investments. And again, the regulations are quite complicated. I'm just going to try to just give you an idea of the basic structure. So we start with the qualifying capital gain of the taxpayer. That gets invested in a timely manner into equity of a qualified opportunity fund. Timely, meaning within 180 days from the time the taxpayer realizes their gain from any source, Bitcoin, stock portfolio, sale of a business, doesn't matter. They invest in equity, they invest that gain in equity of the qualified opportunity fund. Qualified opportunity fund can be a corporation or a partnership or an LLC, as long as the partnership or LLC have more than one member. Next slide, please, Chris. So now that the qualified opportunity fund, the QOF, has that invested capital, it then must timely invest that capital in either qualified opportunity zone business, a QOZB, or qualified opportunity zone business property, QOZBP. A business is a qualified opportunity zone business, can be stock in a corporation, again, interest in an LLC or partnership, as long as there are more than two members or partners. There are other requirements for a QOZB, quite a few in fact, like 70% of its assets have to be qualified opportunity zone business property. 50% of its income has to be derived in the opportunity zone, and many, many more requirements that, again, the OZworks group can help you work through. But that's the idea here. The other type of qualified property would be business property, which would be direct holdings by the QOF of real estate, equipment, or other tangible property. And again, there's a lot of regulation on what you have to be a qualified opportunity zone business property. It has to be in the opportunity zone. It has to be first placed in service in the opportunity zone after 2018. And if it wasn't first placed in business after 2018 and it existed prior to that, it has to be substantially improved. And that essentially means you got to take whatever the basis of the structures are on a piece of real estate and invest at least that amount of the basis of those structures when you invest it, and a lot of other regulations. So here's a quick example. And Chris, do I need to speed it up here?
I don't know. You might have to talk to the crew. Am I flipping too fast? I'm trying to be on top of it.
No, I just don't want to go over my time. Am I good, Carlton? Okay. So here's a real quick example. Let's say you invest $1 million in Tech Inc. In 2015. Then you sell your investment for $5 million in 2021. That creates a $4 million capital gain. Assume now you invest that $4 million capital gain in a qualified opportunity fund, QOF, which you yourself can control and direct. This gives you the $1 million of basis that wasn't gained that you keep out of the QOF, and you can use it to buy a yacht. You can do anything you want for it, and it's tax-free because it was basis. And the gain is now deferred because you've invested it in a QOF. Next slide, please. So if you hold that investment in the QOF for the 10 years that I talked about, and it appreciates to $12 million, and you sell it, say, in the QOF investment in 2031, the additional $8 million of appreciation will be completely tax-free. Unbelievable. So the for those of us in the deal community, in the real estate community, what are the types of opportunities that we should sort of peg on our list of as potential opportunity zone investment candidates? This screen tells you what they are. Commercial real estate development or renovation in an opportunity zone, opening new businesses in opportunity zone, expansion of existing business into opportunity zones from outside into, or large business expansions of businesses already located in opportunity zone. Those are all that should be looked at as potential businesses or properties that would incentivize capital gain investment through QOFs. Next, Chris. Okay, again, this slide again just demonstrates that the intent is to layer opportunity zone capital driving and tax benefit investments with other tax credits, low income, new markets, historical, et cetera. 1031 is applicable. You can defer a gain in real estate for maybe 1 or 2 1031s and then decide you want to incur that gain. As long as you invest the gain out of a 1031 into a QOF, you're still deferring it under the QOZ program. And with respect to opportunity zone businesses, section 1202, which is a neat little capital gain exclusion benefit for qualified small business stock, could be applicable too. Thanks, Chris. A lot of real estate professionals say, well, we already have tax deferral. It's called 1031 exchanges. I'm just going to refer this slide to you. I'm telling you, OZ deals in terms of tax deferral are better. It doesn't have to just be real estate. You don't have to sequester the proceeds in a qualified intermediary. You can use the proceeds for 180 days and just borrow against something else to fund your QOF, as long as it's the amount of the gain that you wanted to defer, and you get the basis step ups in a OZ investment versus a 1031. So I think it totally laps by a factor of 3 or 4 the value of a 1031 exchange. Here are some resources that the group has put together, and there's many, many more resources available in the OZworks platform. And thanks, everybody. I'm sorry, I get excited about this. I'm sorry. It's great to have you guys in the club. Come and join the OZ space. It is fantastic for yourselves and for your clients and your communities.
Thanks, Patrick and Carlton. I'm going to take up just a couple minutes here because both of these awesome gentlemen have referenced OZworks Group. My name's Chris Cooley. I'm one of the co-founders, along with my business partners, Jimmy Atkinson, who is the host of the Opportunity DB podcast, which I highly recommend people go to and check out. And Ashley Tyson, who happens to be another Opportunity Zone lawyer. And Patrick and I talked
if I get home, I can
about somebody's driving, I think. So what I wanted to just show you all is and talk about is the reason that we created OZworks Group. It's an online community. If you've ever been to a co-working space or collaborative workspace, that's my background. This is what I've been doing for about the last 7 years, is building those types of physical workspaces. That's how I learned about opportunity zones, through my clients that were in some of the communities that Patrick has referenced and Carlton has talked about as well. So what we did with is that we recognized and realized that there is a lot of complexities to this incentive. Patrick mentioned quite a few, and we actually are a QOZB. So I've personally invested my own money into a QOF, and we've funded OZworks Group in this structure. It's a practice what we preach kind of thing. The reality, though, is that there's a huge gap between the legislation, the policy, the sort of suits and ties, and the boots on the ground, the people in these spaces. So this community was designed to be an access point to democratize those resources and actually make them available through building relationships. So we provide a very concierge type of service, which Patrick and Carlton can always talk more about. And I don't want to, again, take up too much time, but this circle that you see on this slide, you'll see in the center point is a member. These two gentlemen are members, and they can also speak to our process and our program. There are connectors like myself in the community to do an intake interview with everybody who becomes a member and to support them and learn about what your needs are. We have all kinds of stakeholders in this community, from investors to service providers like Patrick and developers like Carlton. It's really about building and forming those relationships. And so what we do is we have all these other resources. We do events. I'm just going to show you a couple of other slides. This is what the platform itself looks like. We've just carved out a real estate zone. So we have a moderator within that. This is actually going to be new to Patrick and Carlton because it's new to everybody. But we're going to have this space specifically for real estate conversations around OZs. The other thing that we do is we host events. So we just had a panel discussion about OZs in commercial real estate. So this community is designed to be a stepping stone, so that if you are interested in this, you can come in as a beginner, you can come in and become more advanced in the knowledge that we provide. I will also say that one of the first initiatives that we took, and Carlton and Patrick are both part of this committee, which is a diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation and committee. We recognize and realize that we want to promote this type of resource to everybody. And so that way we can combine and collaborate between people who normally wouldn't have had been introduced. And I know Patrick is working on a project. I won't talk about specifics, but you know, we've made all kinds of connections between some of these developments and the client that Patrick is working with. Just was finding roadblocks in working and getting the property financed, right, Patrick? I mean, I don't want to dive into it in too much detail, but it's been OZworks Group, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to make introductions so that we see people who are local that can make an impact and be community driven and centered. Actually, take this program and run with it versus having the large scale developers come in and gentrify areas and not really see the social impact through to fruition. So it's something that I feel very strongly about. I welcome anybody to join. I think Delicia, I sent her a link through Carlton and his commitment and connectivity to our platform. We would like to share membership access. There's no long-term commitment. You can join monthly, you can check it out. But I would say at the very least, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, definitely connect with Patrick. You know, the point here is to surround ourselves with people who are smarter than us. And Patrick is one of those people that I surround myself with, and same with Carlton, because, you know, there are complexities to this, but man, we don't have to know it all, right? We just have to be connected to the people who do. And so that's part of what this is. I appreciate the conversation, the platform, and I'm not going to take too much longer here. Just want to say thank you, and I'll share my LinkedIn profile here in the chat. Delicia, if you have that link, feel free to share it if you haven't already, or I can share it, whatever works best. So
you want to go ahead and share it. I do want to say thank you to all of you guys for coming today and giving us this great information. I do want to make one statement to other members. This is one of those things where the people of the community and the communities we particularly serve say, well, I didn't know, or we didn't get an opportunity, or they're just coming in and taking our areas when this is available, and we just don't take the opportunity to become a part when you can. So the more we can learn about this, the more we can educate the communities we serve, the better off, and we can take advantage of our own communities and help them grow.